here. 8 signs that you're burned out, and then I'm gonna go find the live stream, and we're gonna take viewer questions. We're gonna see what we can do. The first thing I'm gonna do is go to the added page and see. The only thing with this particular venue is with everything that Facebook is doing, it's very hard to promote yourself, and Facebook's algorithm doesn't treat us nicely anymore. It used to be where you and I could sit down on a Facebook live stream and we'd have between 50 and 70 people in the live stream, and it would be viewed, 12 or 15,000 times.
So what changed? I don't understand that.
Donald Trump.
Okay.
So basically what happened is a bunch of people thought that the Russians really influenced the election. And in order to help that, the conservative voice on social media has been squashed. Now, if we didn't care about Christianity and we just wanted to get out there and do some in-your-face op-ed political stuff, man, that would go viral really quick. But then what would happen is when it went viral, Facebook would shut you down. And that's what Stefan Millet is dealing with. He made a page called Pulse Essential.
Right.
And we shared some stuff that was, nothing was sinful for us to share, but it was stuff that you might not share if Christianity was plastered all over it. In other words, I wouldn't share a picture of a dead baby.
Right.
And say, yeah, this was
really
secular,
gruesome.
yes, secular stuff in your face, op-ed, anti-abortion.
What is op-ed?
Oppositional. I think it's op-eds, oppositional education. Or
that's what I was kind of thinking.
Op-ed, oppositional. I cannot remember.
Sounds right.
Yeah, but it's the opposite view. It's
what the general public.
even really really left wing publications run op-ed.
Right.
In fact, I don't know why we're even discussing this. Let's go. What does OPED, op-ed? Yeah, right there. What does op-ed mean? Denoting or printed on the page opposite editorial,
okay.
Not education. Education. I should have known that. Opposite the editorial page in a newspaper devoted to commentary. So like that's the denotation, connotation.
Got it.
The nuance behind the word is now you have mainstream, and if you produce something, if you produce an op-ed piece for, say, the New York Times, well, you're taking a stance opposite of what the New York Times would normally take.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah. So anyway, that's nuance. And now, why were we saying that? Oh yeah. So what Facebook did with this page, Pulse Essential, is it got so big and it went viral. A lot of the stuff did. I mean, because, Stefan would share memes, and someone would share memes like Orange Man bad.
Right.
Don't be a robot. Don't just think the Orange Man is bad. And even if the Orange Man is bad, don't kill babies. Stuff like that. And Facebook shut her down. Mm-hmm. I mean, Facebook unpublished the page.
Right. And
Stefan is now in Facebook jail. Like he can't even comment privately on the private message groups.
Can he have a personal page?
Nope.
Wow.
Nope. Not
He's
in there
gone.
at all. Yeah, if they don't let him back, I think they're going to let him back though.
Oh, okay.
All right. So, I'm going to try something here that's going to help Facebook promote us. Just to see if I can. The problem is Facebook has cut out some of these features that I use to help promote the content, and it's really hurt us. So who knows? But anyway, Facebook needs to have time to build our audience anyhow. Listen, invite your friends. If you're here, invite your friends, share this video and everything. So I'm going to do something that allows, Join in live. There we go. Good deal. All right, maybe that'll work. So, whoops. Now we've got it.
All right.
All right. A lot of this stuff we can't do post or pre-show. We've got to do it while we're in the show.
Oh, right, I get it.
And that's one reason why we've got this recording in the background. So what I'm going to do
You'll be able to go
at
in
the
there
end of it, I can just edit all of this front part out.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
And
all of the big silences and stuff.
Yeah.
For podcast form, you'll be able to take that out.
I'll take some of them out. You want it to sound natural.
Right.
I've heard some podcasts where you could tell that the guys, that whoever did it, went in and edited out every bit of silence.
Yeah.
And it just sounds like he's talking like this all the time, and the person is trying to tell us about the Bible, and then they're talking about Jesus, and then the apostles, and then Revelation, and then...
And that just doesn't sound too good.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. But anyway, so I don't even know how many people we have in. I'm so happy to see it. And if we don't look at your message, if we don't acknowledge your message, then re-up it. So we are going to talk about 8 signs that you're burnout, and I think it would do good to go over those signs.
But what if we talk about what burnout is to begin with?
Well, that'll work. So why don't you take that? What is burnout? You define that.
Okay, so when we look at the 8 signs, you'll be able to clearly see a definition, but just really in general, it's just getting so overwhelmed with all of the different responsibilities that you have in life that you kind of shut down.
Gotcha.
And you might be burnout in one area of your life, but not be burnout in another. You know, you might be burnout. I guess you could get burnout at home, but feel
functional
really
at your job.
Functional in your job. But more than likely, burnout is going to bleed over, and you're going to feel that in every area of your life. And so when we look at these 8 signs of burnout, we'll be able to really much more clearly define it. And you'll be able to say, oh, wow, I've experienced that before,
Gotcha.
If you don't know what it is. But the reason I actually wanted to talk about this is I shared the 8 signs of burnout in the Mindful Living, the ladies only group, which is the only group I have now as far as like mental health goes.
Mm-hmm.
I got rid of everything else. I just couldn't keep up with it. But I had several comments on there talking about, people being burnout and people being in that moment, in that present moment, when they saw the post, they felt burnout.
Gotcha.
And so maybe I thought it would be helpful for us to talk about, what burnout is, and maybe some ways that we can prevent it or be aware of it so that we can change it and get back to where we're fully functional.
I feel burnout from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
And
what happens when you feel burnout? Like when you're looking at those 8 signs, can you figure out like which ones maybe that you seem to have more of? Because you probably don't experience every 8 of them, or maybe you.
No.
Maybe you do. I don't know.
Number 1, you're not taking care of your basic needs.
So basic needs, man, that is so important, and it's crazy because, first of all, taking care of your basic needs. What are your basic needs? Getting enough sleep, getting enough food,
right?
Nutrition wise,
absolutely.
Having enough water to drink, getting enough love, hugs, the touch, and then what's the other one? There's 5, I think. I said food. Okay, we've got food, we've got sleep, we've got care or connection with other.
Love and connection.
Water. There is another one, and I can't think of what it is right now.
I don't know. You? Maybe it's health and exercise and stuff like that.
Yeah, maybe it's.
I know. When I feel burnout, I don't exercise.
Don't exercise, right?
And I think, like, especially with this Canada trip, as much as I love Canada, it was so hard leading up to it, and it was so hard coming back from it. We had a little bit of a mess up because of plane tickets and stuff like that, and it was so difficult getting back home, and I had so much stress on me that, I shut down.
Yeah, but you needed to. You knew it ahead of time.
Yeah.
You were able to recognize it, and you were able to say, I need to rest, and so you did.
Sure.
And I think that's a sign of growth with you because I don't think you always do that. But I did notice that you did that this time. You said, I need to rest.
Yes.
So what I was going to say is now, I'm working with kids that are preschool and kindergarten age, and much more with this age group than with the older kids. Do you see high amounts of dysregulation whenever their basic needs aren't met?
Right.
And so in a classroom setting, if a child starts getting really dysregulated, maybe they can't sit at the table and concentrate on their work. Maybe they start yelling and cussing at the teacher and throwing stuff and, kind of getting in that tantrum zone.
Absolutely.
I'm like the mental health professional, so I'm the one that responds to this. This is a crisis, and I'm the one that responds. I'm the crisis intervention team. And I'm going to respond to that. And every single time, my first question is going to be, do you need a drink of water? Do you need a hug? Do you need something to eat, a snack? Because those things are basic needs that could potentially be, it may not be the cause, but it definitely is part of the cause, and I want to be able to be sure that those basic needs are met before I move on to something else.
Gotcha.
And so it's just the same with us. If our basic needs aren't getting met, then that just kind of like causes this avalanche to occur into some of these other areas. So I'm really impressed that that's actually the first one on the list too.
Personal needs.
Yeah. Or just like making sure that your basic needs are being met.
Yeah.
Because if you are feeling burnout, then more than likely, haven't you ever been burnout and you're just like you either want to eat a whole lot of junk food, or it's almost like because you're so stressed out and because you have so much on your plate that you go into that autopilot, which is one of the things on the list, and you don't eat. Like you'll go for very long periods of taking care of your basic needs. You won't go to bed when you should go to bed. You maybe sleep in or wake up too early and you don't get enough rest. Your basic needs are all out of whack when you're burnt out.
So that almost sounds like manic depression and in a manic state. And not that I'm saying that I'm manic sometimes, but I think if anything that I've learned from studying about this and what you and I've talked about for mental health is there's nothing that's black and white. In other words, you don't have 9 checks and you're manic.
Right.
It's that you can exhibit manic tendencies, might not be the tendencies.
Yeah, you can say that.
So you could exhibit manic tendencies. And I know that sometimes, I feel like I can conquer the world. And when I do that, I wake up at 4 a.m. and I'll do that for 2 or 3 weeks straight. I'll wake up between 4 and 6. I'll get right to the office. I'll study. I'll edit video. I'll put together episodes. I'll do all this, that, and the other. And I'm tell you a secret. The reason why I'm doing the Cogitations episode is to have a standard in my work life that I absolutely do not. It cannot be affected by being manic or being depressed. It's in other words, if I'm burnt out, I still got to do it. And I always say that. I said I'm going to try to go. I used to say on the episodes, which there's almost 50 now, that I'll try to get to them at between 8 and 8:30, and like that was stupid.
Yeah,
that was just it just wasn't realistic.
But that's almost like feeding that burnout.
Yes,
is what you're doing.
Yes. So then I okay, just as long as I get to it between 8 and 10, and then I said, but what I will promise you is I don't care if it's 10:30 at night.
Every day. Every
Monday through Friday, I will do a Cogitations episode.
You could even not really get burnt out on everything else, but you could get burnt out on the Cogitations episode. But I think it would be beneficial to the people who listen for you to say, I'm a little burnt out on the Cogitations episode. I'm going to take a week off and I'll I'll kind of refigure things and get back into it.
That's a real nice thought, but that's just not reality.
You can do that. But I know what you mean. Like you might lose some of your audience.
Yes. So I would have to, in other words, if I want to take a vacation.
Yeah.
Isn't it normal for people to take vacations?
Yes.
Then I would need to get somebody to stay. I would either need to do the mobile Cogitations episode, which I did in Canada, or I would need to get somebody to take my place for that week that I'm off.
To continue with that consistency.
To continue with the consistency.
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing about it, that allows you to take care of your basic needs and still fulfill the obligations that you've created.
Right.
if you understand that. But I think one of the signs that you're burnt out and you're not taking care of your basic needs is you get tunnel vision and you can't problem solve.
Yeah, that's
because
exactly right.
all you do is, and I'll take the cogitation episodes. All you do is you're like, well, I've got these cogitations episodes to do, and I don't know what to do, and I've got to go to Canada, and I just, what can I do? Because I don't know if I can do the cogitations episodes, and who can I get to?
Gets so irrational and unrealistic.
No, you got this little mixer. These mics are portable, and they got Wi-Fi in Canada.
So you actually just gave a solution to that, right?
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. That's why I said the person who's burnt out says, man, I got Monday through Friday, I got cogitation episodes. So what am I going to do? I just can't do it. So they shut down other parts of their lives. It's almost like, do you remember the Star Trek? Mm-hmm. And they're going to reroute power from the engines to the shields, or they're going to reroute power from the shields to the engines so they can get away. And I think that's what we do. Mm-hmm. If I'm feeling burnt out in the cogitations episodes, I'll reroute my energy from sermon preparation.
Yeah.
Or from spending time with family.
Right.
Or from, whatever different parts in our lives, and I'll reroute that to whatever I'm feeling burnout in.
Yeah.
And these cogitations episodes are a big, great experiment.
Yeah.
To see what I can do here that's balanced, and it's kind of helped me bring balance to every other aspect of my ministry.
Yeah.
And we'll just see. Maybe by the time I'm 60 or 70 years old, I'll be a normal, functioning human being.
Yeah, I think probably everybody says that, though.
Hopefully they're honest with themselves.
Right. Yeah,
anyway.
So take care of your basic needs and be aware of when you aren't taking care of your basic needs if you're trying to prevent burnout. And then, just take a break and say, I need to regroup. I need to get back to going to sleep at night when I'm supposed to sleep, and I'm going to try to spend time with people who I can connect with, because that is a basic need. You said that's a love and connection.
Connection.
Feel connected to the people that matter to you. Make sure that you're getting healthy, balanced meals. I know that is a big downfall of mine whenever I'm starting to feel burnout. Instead of actually eating things that I know that's good for my body, I will resort to eating junk food a lot. I mean, we all eat junk food a little bit, but what I'm saying is like just kind of resorting to that because it's the only thing. And so you see this a lot. This is a huge deal. I think that's the reason that you even see these memes like this that have like the 8 signs of burnout, because so many people are experiencing burnout. Absolutely. And they are on that autopilot. So many people. That's the reason that we talk about being present, because there's so many people around us that are not being present. And we probably can read this list and think about at least 10 people that we know that we can say, oh, we've seen them in burnout phase. It's just like the way that we live in this fast-paced world. But it's our personal responsibility to take a step back and say, I'm not getting the needs met that I need met. And when I do that, like, it's kind of a ripple effect. Things start slowing down. You're able to start, getting a little bit less burnout.
Surely. And that's the thing, this is not abnormal. Mm-mm. If you're feeling this way, there's not, how do I put this? There is something wrong with you. I mean, you need to fix something that's out of balance.
Well, everybody experiences
that's
burnout.
The thing. There's nothing, quote unquote, wrong with you only.
Yeah. The idea here is to realize your personal responsibility, be aware of your own self, and do what you can to prevent that area of these areas of burnout, so that you don't fall into the pit as often, or maybe it's not as severe for you.
Right.
Like you can recognize ahead of time, oh, I'm starting to feel burnout. I need to take a break and I need to go do something. What are you doing?
Nothing. I'm just looking at some of these levels over here.
Oh, okay. So it says you're snoozing your alarm too much.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of goes back to like not meeting your basic need.
Yeah.
Because if you're snoozing, well, I think whenever I read that, what I do is I'm dreading the day, because I know that the rest that I got wasn't nearly enough to get me through the day. And so I snooze, because I'm dreading the day.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, it's not, and that's the thing, it's not laziness.
No, not at all.
It's not laziness.
It's just, no, it's not laziness at all. It's kind of protection. So you're protecting yourself.
Yes. Why would you want to get up and face the world in a time in which you know that you're not going to be fulfilled?
Yeah.
And I know that, some people might be listening to this like, man, that's first world problems. You need to suck it up, buttercup, and go on. Well, in essence, that's what we're talking about. We're trying to give people the equipment and the tools to suck it up and go on. Right.
The thing is that like first world problems, I mean, we live in the first world. And we live there, you know what I'm saying? So we've got to
in a third
figure out
world,
how to manage it.
Yes, in a third world country, in a first world country like the United States, if you hit your snooze too many times, you'll be late for work and you might get rolled up and you might have a paper in your file.
Yeah.
In a third world country, if you hit your first off, there's no snooze because you get up at dawn because you're just about 2 levels past a hunter-gatherer society.
Yeah.
And if you don't get up when you're supposed to get up, you don't eat.
Right.
And you'll die.
So you're not going to see 8 signs of burnout whenever you're dealing in a third world country because they're already not getting their basic needs met. So
exactly.
What we're dealing with here is something a little bit more progressive. I don't know what I'm trying to say. That's not the right word, but
I know what you're talking about. It's not actually progressive, but it's
not progressive. But what I'm saying is like it is signs that you live in a world that's above a third world country.
Right. Huh. Somebody a brother in the We Talk Truth group. I don't English well sometimes. A brother in the We Talk Truth group said we don't hit the snooze button when it's time to go fishing. And that's
that's a good example because you're not hitting the snooze whenever you're going to do something that's enjoyable. But the problem with burnout is even the things that are enjoyable really aren't enjoyable.
Yes. Well, so that would get you down to being on autopilot.
Right. Yeah. We've talked about that's the last one on the list.
Yes.
No, it's the 7th one on the list.
And I would put forth that the people in the third world country are on
autopilot because they're literally like trying to get their basic needs met at all times.
Yes. Talking about that, we don't hit the snooze button when it's time to go fishing. That's and this gentleman, I know him. He's got a really good heart. He is in no way implying what I'm about to say. Some people will do that though, and they'll say, "Well, what do you mean you hit your snooze button? You can't get out of bed when it's time for work." There's no excuse because you can get up and be early when it's time to go to the deer stand or the fishing hole or whatever. And although that's a fact,
yeah.
That's not a really good gauge for measurement when it comes to a person's mental health. And
right.
It's 2 totally different scenarios.
I think that what we can use by this, they're saying like you hit the snooze button too much, but I think the underlying thing there is getting up and dreading the day because you are not finding any kind of fulfillment in your day because you are so entrenched in that burnout.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Would a person who is hitting the snooze button too much, in other words, they're dreading their day, would that person even dread the fishing trip?
Yeah, I think so.
Because I think I've been there in my life. I think I have actually just...
Well, I would say like burnout is definitely on the road to depression.
Yeah.
And one of the main criteria for depression is that you find... You lack interest in previously enjoyable activities.
Right.
So
So that's the thing. Yeah. There's been I can look back at times in my life where I've had really opportunities for really enjoyable things that normal people would find fulfilling that I just didn't care.
And it's because you probably were burnt out or maybe even depressed.
Yeah, I see that.
We all get depressed. That's the thing too. When we're talking about mental wellness.
Mental helmets.
I can't talk. When we're talking about mental illness, we talk about physical illness all the time. When you're physically ill, what do? If you have a cold, you might go to the doctor. You might go to the drugstore and get you some cough medicine, and you treat that stuff right away. Well, mental illness is the same thing. And what we do to prevent our physical wellness is we exercise, we eat well, we get enough sleep, we, do all these things that's going to promote healthiness inside of our bodies. We've got to do that for our mental health too. And sometimes I would say that if we're experiencing burnout, or if we kind of have a tendency to slip into and out of depressed states, that's like a mental health cold. And you've got to be able to care for yourself during that time just as much as you would if you had a physical cold.
Understand.
But more than likely, people who have these mental illnesses are going to suffer from physical illness too, and that person is not going to take care of themselves on either front. They're going to ignore the cold, and they're going to ignore the depression.
Which is not good.
No.
God gave us those feelings, and those bad feelings aren't the word. God gave us those feelings as warning signs.
Right. Because he wants us to be productive, and he wants us to live abundantly.
John 10:10.
Yep.
Jesus came that they might have life. That's a physical life and spiritual. But the idea is, I've said this so many times before, when Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden and they ate of the fruit, they were supposed to die.
Yep.
Nobody was supposed to, humanity was not supposed to live past the garden. The reason you and I can sit here today and talk about this because Jesus died on the cross.
Right.
So Jesus came that we might have life. That's all men. Whether if you're an atheist, you got life because of Christ Jesus. And he came to give you that life and that you might live an abundant life. And that's what we need to take away the taboo of mental health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. And I think that there's an argument for, in our world right now, what we're seeing in this society is a whole lot of talk about improving self.
Sure.
Like digging inside self and like actually confronting demons and being more present in the world. And I think from a secular standpoint, it almost looks like being gods unto yourself.
Right.
But from a Christian perspective, it's I need to expand like a rubber band, my comfort zone and my ability to interact with the world around me so that I can show them that this life is worth living and living more abundantly through Jesus Christ.
Well, and that's the thing. Your mantra, be, grow, live, be present, grow connections, live life. That is right out of the Bible. Out of the Bible.
Exactly. And if you're experiencing burnout, you're not going to be able to do any of those three things.
If I'm experiencing burnout, I'm not going to be present.
No.
Like quite literally not going to be present. We've been talking about that for the last 30 minutes.
Right.
20 minutes, whatever it is.
Exactly. And your connections aren't going to be very strong because you're going to be so out of touch because of the burnout that the connections that you are supposed to have with the people around you just don't exist.
That's it.
And then what's that? Live life. You can't live life without being present and being connected to another person. It's impossible. We are made as interwoven creatures, like interpersonal relationships is the fabric of our lives. We don't live independently of one another, no matter what the world says that we can do.
There's a Bible verse for that.
Okay.
I love, love, love the blueprint of the temple. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 19 and following. Now, therefore, ye are no more strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens. There's your connection with the saints and of the household of God. Again, connection. And are built upon the foundation of the apostles and the prophets, Jesus Christ himself being the chief cornerstone, in whom all the building fitly framed together groweth unto an holy temple in the Lord, in whom ye also are builded together for an habitation of God through the Spirit. That is a blueprint of the temple, the church.
Yeah.
And the mortar that holds the bricks together is love. And we need to understand love is not an emotion. Love is an action.
Absolutely.
Anybody that's been married longer than 7 days knows what it means to love somebody because you stood before God and witnesses and said you were going to.
Right.
That's agape love. He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. That's love and connection. That's be present, grow connections, live your life.
Mm-hmm. And there's a sense in which you can't really be connected to another human being if you're not connected to yourself.
Right.
And when you're not connected to yourself, you're completely burnt out.
Absolutely.
And so if you're sitting here and you're like, I don't understand how to make connections with others, I don't really feel like I can really identify one person that I feel really connected to, then I would say that some signs of depression there, signs of burnout. And the first step to making connections with another person is to be aware of what's going on inside of you and start getting connected to you So that way you can actually expand and become connected to somebody else.
Absolutely. So, one person from the We Talk Truth group says it helps sometimes to just go outside and to watch the grass grow.
Absolutely. We do not do that enough.
Mm-mm.
We have we have earbuds, we have headphones to put on to constantly have music in our ears when we go exercise or do anything in solitude. We've got to have something always going, you know? And that's like a fake sense of being connected to the world.
Amen.
But what you really need to do is pull all that stuff off and just sit with your own self.
Right.
And meditate and think and consider your day. And I guarantee you, if you do that, then you later on you think, I wonder what it was that during that moment of silence, all the things that I thought about, all the things that I meditated on, you can identify your priorities.
Absolutely.
By what you've done during those quiet times.
Absolutely.
And if it's on anything other than God, your family, then perhaps it'll give you some understanding of how to reprioritize.
I cannot believe that I'm going to say these words that are coming out of my mouth, but it would do you much good to sit down in your thinking chair, and everybody needs a thinking chair, for about an hour and just do nothing. And after you're done doing nothing, do one thing. Get a journal and write down your thoughts. Mm-hmm. And your thoughts, from doing nothing, from that hour of doing nothing, that incidentally, that's called meditation. Mm-hmm. Those become your priorities, they become your values, and they are on your to-do list. Right.
And yes, exactly. And the thing is if you don't like what you've written down, you're the only one that can change it.
That's it.
Right. And if you are, here's the excuse that I get. I don't have an hour to do that.
That's hogwash.
It's hogwash. You make
You're already
priorities.
Not sleeping at night.
Exactly. You make room for what you think that what you need. Yep. And if the 8 signs of burnout is your to-do list is too long, if you can't make time for an hour for yourself every once in a while, that's not every single day.
Right.
That's just once a week. If you can't make an hour for yourself to sit in quietness and solitude, to get comfortable with your own self, then your to-do list is too long.
You know what I've gotten to, a habit that I've gotten in that I'm not so sure that I'm proud of?
What's that?
Is listening to podcasts while I take a shower.
Oh, but you know what? I guess I can see where that might develop into like a really nice routine to get the morning news or whatever it is. But I'm sure that there's other times during the day, or at least several times a week, that you find yourself just sitting and thinking. You don't have a problem with that usually.
Say that one more time. I was reading. Sorry, I was reading comments.
You disconnected from me.
I did disconnect for a moment, but in my defense, I'm like, oh, here's folks in the nearchurches.com page. It's got all these comments.
Right. So what I was saying is, I'm sure there's nothing wrong with listening to a podcast when you're taking a shower, but I think that you're pretty good at taking time other times to just be quiet in yourself. Did you just disconnect again?
I did not. No, I did that.
Because when you used to walk, you would walk in silence sometimes.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And you're going to walk again. I mean, it's not like you just stop walking. You're taking a break because you've been burnt out.
Yes. You're going to walk again. It's like a miracle. Somebody's going to come lay hands on me.
Right.
There's no physical reason why I can't walk. Actually, there was for a while.
Yeah, you did have some.
Man, I had some bad issues with my feet. Let's look at some of these comments in the nearchurches.com. First off, Gayla Stacy, good morning, Tony and LaBeth. Rita Keelan says opinion editorial. So oppositional editorial, opinion editorial.
Okay.
Both of those work. Sonia Onstead is here, or Sandra Onstead is here. Good morning. Sandra, Donna Getz is have to watch later, but this is a very needed subject. And, Sandra Onstead says comfort food. Mm-hmm. Also, she drinks. Oh, I drink tea upon tea when I feel over the top. That's Connie Henderson. And Billy Simpkins says, good morning to both of you. Good morning, Billy Simpkins. And for whatever we were talking about at the time, Sandra said that's probably why there are more and more overweight people, because we don't realize how we ignore ourselves.
That's exactly right.
And Sandra Olmstead says, I don't hit snooze, but I do try to get one more thing done than one more thing done, and I'm late.
Yes, she does do that.
Absolutely.
She knows herself well.
Yep. Connie Henderson says, wow, I have those mornings when I snooze too long in the morning, and it is because I don't see the day is going to be good.
Yeah, it's that, isn't that another one of the signs is your thoughts are negative? So that kind of like goes into the snoozing your alarm too much, which is what I thought was a more specific way of saying that you dread your day.
Gotcha.
Your thoughts are negative. You're going to be dreading your day if your thoughts are negative. Your thoughts are going to be negative if you dread your day. All those things are just interwoven right there. What are you doing now?
I was a phone call that I was waiting on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Let me get back in here. So, let's see. Erna Wybe from Canada says she's going to watch it later. So thank you so much. I'm glad. I mean, this is very, very encouraging. And I'm going to go to the...
So here's one we haven't talked about. You're getting overly irritated by other people. I think that this is something that we don't...
Well, let's talk about them in order. What about your to-do list?
I kind of thought we already talked about that. Your to-do list is overwhelming because we said if your to-do list is so big that you can't take some time for yourself, then you need to take some stuff off your to-do list.
Gotcha.
But also what Sandra said, I can fit one more thing in before, like she doesn't snooze her alarm, but she'll fit one more thing in, which makes her late for work.
Right.
And I think it's like this sense of like needing, I don't know, maybe there's like some anxiety there, like needing to get so much done. Like you think that it cannot wait. That
Absolutely.
The world is going to crumble around you because you can't, this one thing isn't going to get done.
And again, that also comes from an overemphasized sense of your own self-importance to the world around you.
Right. And I think so.
And that's
not necessarily.
That's a heavy load.
Yes, exactly. It's an extremely heavy burden to put on yourself.
Yeah.
But we do that.
Mm-hmm.
We think, oh, we have to get through all of these things or the world is going to, this isn't going to happen right and this isn't going to happen. If I don't do this, then my kids aren't going to have this. If I don't do that, and my husband's not going to get this. And when more than likely they're going to be fine. And if you can, take a step back and say, all right, my kids are going to be fine if they don't get this exactly whenever I think they should.
Right. So, you remember whenever I was training horses and I was training for a guy that had been turning out world champion walking horses since 1970.
Mm-hmm.
And, we'd get a young buck through that was just going to change the way he had done it. We're going to change the industry. Me or one of the other guys would walk them out to the arena and they'd look up at the champion board. See all them champions? Every champion going all the way back to 1970. And there's a lot of different classes. So in 1 year, you might have 7 or 8 different world champions in different classes.
Right.
So, but they were all, it's a pretty impressive list on this board. And we'd always ask them, what year were you born?
Yeah. Because more than likely it was after 1970 if they were coming in.
Yeah, so like 1986. Okay, 1986, this barn turned out 4 world champion horses and 1 world grand champion horse. And then look at all of those that he turned out before you even were existent in the world.
Yeah.
I think he knows what he's doing. Just let him do it his way. Don't be so self-important to think that you're going to change the world. That is the craziest notion that people are taught. God never says go out and change the world. God says change yourself. 1 Timothy 4:16.
Take heed.
Take heed unto thyself and unto the doctrine, and continue in them. Period. The subsequent, the consequence of that rather is you'll save yourself and those that hear thee.
Mm-hmm.
So your responsibility is not to other people. Your first responsibility is to yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself has love of self built in as the priority.
Right.
Because if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to love your neighbor.
Mm-hmm. I think it's the same argument that people use for not being able to study study their Bibles. You might say you need to study your Bibles every day. Well, I don't really have time to fit that in. My to-do list is too long.
Yes.
If your to-do list is too long to fit in some Bible study and prayer, then
you got to trim some fat.
Yes, those priorities need to be rearranged, and maybe you need to take some moment to sit in silence and write in your journal about your priorities and your values. I think a lot of times we say our values and our priorities are one thing, right, but we show action that there's something different. And so that was a really great exercise for me in grad school, because we were required to get intimately familiar with our own set of values so that we didn't harm somebody else.
Right.
Because if we couldn't understand our own set of values, then we really wouldn't be able to help somebody else. Right.
Sandra Olmstead says, I could make time, but others would just interrupt.
Make time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. She's saying that's like an excuse.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That is definitely one of those excuses.
Then you're not really making time.
Yeah.
That phone, it's got an off switch.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there's a sense of what, we have the ability to set our own limitations.
Right.
If somebody else doesn't follow those boundaries, then that's their problem. It's not yours, because we all have the right to be able to say, here's the line that I'm going to draw that you cannot cross. You have the right as a human being to be able to say, like, this is my boundary. You're not going to cross this boundary.
That's it.
Yeah. And if somebody else gets mad about that, then that shows some ineffective boundary setting on their part, and it's not a reflection of you. Absolutely. And I think a lot of times we get caught up in that. That's the reason that we talk about, like, it's okay to say no. We don't always have to say yes when somebody asks us to do something.
Sandra says she's being realistic.
Being realistic? Wait, what did she say?
That I could make time, but others like to interrupt. And you said that that's an excuse. Like, that's her. You said that that's her just showing an example of an excuse. But she took that as from her perspective, that's not an excuse.
Well, and the answer would be, like, maybe the idea is to explore your boundaries.
Exactly.
Because there's time. We make time for what we want, and then we also make excuses for what we want.
Exactly.
To make excuses for.
I think it's interesting, and I've done this with people who really like to look busy. Mm-hmm. That tell me, well, I can't go do this. I just don't have time, Tony. What have you done for the last 3 hours?
Right.
Walk me through it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I took a nap on my couch. Exactly. So you like the appearance of being busy, but you're not really being busy. You're like Mary and Martha. Mary was cumbered about with much work and not focusing after that better thing. We've got to learn how to prioritize.
Right.
Both of the things of Mary and Martha were good.
Right. Right.
But one was better.
Right. Well, and it goes back to what you were saying. You were kind of exploring, like, maybe I got in a bad habit of using my podcasting during my shower time. And if I didn't know you and we were sitting here having this conversation and I didn't know that you were able to, like, go out and walk around the parking lot and get into your thoughts, in that way, then I might say, maybe that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
But because I know you, I can say, well, there's no harm in you listening to a podcast while you take a shower. If you can fit in the priorities that you have for yourself, like, in other areas, then what's the harm of using the shower as the place where you listen to your podcast? And so the idea is even if it's not an hour every single day, like, we should be able to fit in a little bit of time somewhere in our week. Whether it is in the shower or on our way to work while we're driving, on our way home, there's a lot of opportunity to fit in just a little bit of self-reflection time. I know Sandra personally, and I know that she fits in her self-reflection time.
Absolutely.
But she does give some really good examples of, like, some excuses to make.
Psalm 90 verse 12 comes to mind, and I really think that we need to this is something good to take heed of. Let me flip over here. I need to get my New Testament Psalms rebound so I can go back to it. Psalm 90 verse 12. So teach us to number our days that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. That's taking inventory. And the idea there, of course, is understanding. It's kind of like that Latin phrase, memento mori. Mm-hmm. Remember that you're going to die. Mm-hmm. Remember death. And if you remember that you're going to die, it's like my Devo the other night. If you know that being a Christian is going to kill you, then every day is a blessing.
Yeah.
Like everything you have is a blessing.
Right.
So you carve out time. You learn to. It's like starting at point A and going to point B on the Appalachian Trail. So many places along that trail, there are books, there are stuff that people just cast off because it was too heavy. And you got to learn how to get rid of some of those things. You know, if you don't learn how to get rid of some of those things, you're never going to fully self-actualize and be anywhere close to a functioning human being. You're going to live in a constant state of burnout. You know?
Yeah, and I mean, we do live in the real world, going back to like it's realistic that people interrupt us. And so we kind of, there's a give and take there, and there's a way in which we have to kind of rearrange the way that we handle things because of that. But the fact is that it's extremely healthy and appropriate to set boundaries. And if it is one of those type of interruptions that is unnecessary, and you know, if your dog needs to go to the bathroom, I wouldn't consider that necessarily an interruption. That's just life happening.
Yeah.
You know, and so I guess there's a sense in what kind of an interruption it is. If it's somebody who just doesn't understand their own boundaries, you have the ability to establish those boundaries.
This is so hard for people to get over. You're not so important in everybody's life that they can't stand a few hours without you.
And you know, for this last week, I've been really focused on where do I fit? Because of the whole humility. You talked about humility.
Humility is knowing Wednesday night. On
Wednesday night, you talked about humility, and it was the definition you used was knowing where you fit.
Yes.
You probably can say knowing where you fit in the world, or
knowing how your cog fits in the machine.
Yeah, yeah. And I've been using just that little part of what you said in my daily application when I've been reading 1 Samuel.
Right.
And so I've been reading 1 Samuel, and it's all about, the turmoil and the tension between David and Saul. And Saul is constantly pursuing David, and he's extremely jealous, and he's just so arrogant, and thinking that he's much more than what he is. He definitely he has no clue where he fits in the world. There's no humility whatsoever. If he had humility, he would know that he served a purpose and that he was the Lord's anointed for a time.
Yes.
And there would be no tension between him and David.
He would have known that it was temporary.
Right.
Genesis 49:10 says, "The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh come, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be, not unto Benjamin."
Right.
Saul was a Benjamite.
Right. And so he created a whole world of self-importance. I mean, the whole entire... He is fighting against something that's inevitable, right?
Inevitable.
Yeah.
I'm inevitable.
Inevitable, y'all. Okay, and then so you've got David, who is the picture-perfect definition of humility. He knows exactly where he fits in the world and what his role is. And how many times did the Lord deliver Saul into his hands, and he says, I'm not touching the anointed.
That's it.
Now, David, later on, we're going to find that he does have his own, he's human, and he has his own issues, but they are definitely not that at this point in time.
Surely.
He knows where he fits. And so my prayer each day this week, going through, has been to help me figure out, where I fit. And to not think I'm more important than I am, but also realize, where I am important, That's a difficult thing for me. I'm always one to kind of go on the side of not feeling important where I should feel important. I've taken this job where it blows my mind. I am the mental health professional for all of kindergarten and pre-K. I handle all those families, and I'm building a mental health program in Jonesboro for Craighead County. And to me, I'm kind of I have a major struggle feeling like I fit there.
Sure.
And understanding what my role is. I don't give myself enough credit in that role, And so I've been working with having to realize that I need the confidence that comes with the humility. Those two things, there's a really perfect dance between those two things, you know? And so I feel like it would be very easy for me to experience burnout if I didn't try to work and be that humble person in that situation, right?
Absolutely.
And I'm probably going to experience burnout because at some point in time during the course of this next year, I am going to find myself thinking that I'm all things to all people. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, that's why you get vacations.
Right. And also, if I can know the 8 signs of burnout and I can kind of know what I can do to prevent them, maybe I can make it less. Maybe I can make it feel a little bit less burdensome on me.
Absolutely. We have a lady in the We Talk Truth group. Hold on a second. Wrong one. Right here. I get burned out with responsibility I have for others, some of which they can do for themselves. I have to remind myself that if I did right now, life will go on and things will get done. Or if I died right now, life will go on and things will get done. I listen to podcasts while I clean house or I'm doing daily things. But for me, that is a for me thing and is uplifting.
Right.
So that gets back to what you were telling me, like with no other context or anything like that. You know, your advice as a therapist to her would be, that's great. That's a good, what's the opposite of maladaptive?
Adaptive.
Oh, really? Okay.
Right.
So that's a good
adaptive
coping mechanism for you to handle your burnout.
Absolutely. And to know it ahead of time is amazing. We don't often know, so that you can actually sit there and type all that out and say, here's where I experience burnout. Here's where I feel maybe more important than what I really am at times. And here's what I do to prevent that.
Right.
To me, that's amazing to be able to do that. And that's a preventative measure to
absolutely
burnout.
So let's go down the line. I think we this year to-do list is overwhelming. We've got that covered.
Yeah.
All right. So you understand. Sometimes you got to trim the fat. Also, another lady says it's more likely your child will be fine if they don't get what they want when they want it.
Right. Yeah. And that was just an example. Let me say one more thing about the to-do list. There's going to be days where your to-do list is bigger than you can manage, and there may not be anything you can do about it.
I tell you,
but that's not the status quo. That's not where you live.
Yeah.
That's a day.
I tell you what I do with my to-do list. I've got that.
You migrate it.
I've got that journal. It's a migrated to-do list.
Yeah.
On 1 week or the beginning of the month, I write down everything that I think I want to accomplish that month. And then I populate. I take some stuff from that month and I put it on the weeks. And then I take the ones on the weeks and I figure out which days. And then guess what? Sunday night, Monday morning, whatever, what I didn't get done that week, I just bring it on. And if I've got something that's hanging out there for a month,
then obviously it's not that important.
I just don't knock it off.
Right.
Because it's not that important to me.
Right.
I don't stress over it.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, if it's, pay the electric bill.
That's something that don't just get knocked off, because it will get turned off.
It will get turned off. Yes.
And then also, with that is that sometimes what we think is important on we kind of discussed this, what we think is important on our to-do list. But what I had to do one month, just a while back, is I was feeling pretty overwhelmed with everything I had. And I thought, okay, what would I tell somebody in this situation? I mean, like, I literally thought that in my head. Like, what would I tell somebody in this situation? I would tell them, write down everything all my responsibilities, and maybe take some out so that I can manage. And so I wrote them all down, and I'm thinking, I don't want to take any of these out. I don't need to take any of these out.
Yeah.
And I really didn't. And I just said I didn't want to take any of those out. But the fact is that I was going to go straight into the depths of depression and burnout if I didn't take something out. And so I just had to choose. Okay. Yeah. So I'm not going to do this Bible study on Tuesday Night Live for a while. Right. And then that was just something that I really enjoyed doing. I love doing it. But I had to take it off the list. And exactly. I had to say, you know what? Somebody else can do this for a while.
Yep.
It can't be me.
And even if they didn't, the world's not going to end.
The world's not going to end. It will go on.
It's like this lady said, it's like this lady said, and it sounds so morbid and we're very uncomfortable, but the realization that if you died, life is going to go on. Right. That's powerful. Right. And I think that's one of the powerful messages of the Bible, Well,
and another thing is I think that we fail to delegate responsibilities too. There's a lot of times when if we live in like a family unit, now there's a difference between if you're living on your own and, you know, we do know people who live on their own and maybe need the help from local congregations and stuff. But for the most part, we have family around, we have friends around, and there's a way in which we can delegate some responsibilities that sometimes we don't. And we start to begin feeling overwhelmed because we have to take care of so much on our own. There's been times, especially like when the kids were younger, that I thought I had to do it all. And I would put all of the stuff on my plate instead of saying, hey, Tony, can you help me out and cook dinner twice a week? When all I would have to do is say, hey, Tony, I can't do all of this. Can you cook dinner twice a week?
And a lot of times what happens, not that this happened with us, but I can't remember, it could have, is that you're sitting over there thinking, man, I wonder, I just need some help. Why don't he help me? And,
but I haven't ever said anything.
And I'm sitting there thinking, man, that woman is awesome. I can't believe I've got such a good wife. She has everything under control. She don't need my help. I really wish I could do something for her.
Right, exactly.
And so it's all about these two opposing forces that the tragic is she never said and I never asked.
That, and then what happens is, and this has happened to us, where I say, I feel like I'm doing everything all the time. Why aren't you helping me?
Yeah.
When, if I would have just said, hey,
exactly,
I need help, I'm feeling overwhelmed, you would be so excited to help me.
That's
and you
it.
would say, you know what? Yes, what do you need me to do?
Yep.
And instead of just carrying all that on my own.
And the weird dichotomy of the first time that I took care of the babies and everything, and you came home and supper was prepared, the babies were washed, clean, diapers, everything like that, and it's like you were mad.
Because I wasn't needed. That's what I took that at.
Exactly.
Like, you can do all this on your own. What am I here for?
Yeah.
You know, and so that's a feeling inside myself that I've got to rectify.
Do you understand that is biblical?
Yeah.
Take heed. Well, now I can't remember it. It's 1 Corinthians chapter 10, and it's a form of idolatry, and it's this thinking more of yourself. Most men don't need wives in order to take care of children.
Right.
Taking care of children is so stinking easy.
From a simple, you know, you can be simple about it.
It is. I mean, just keeping them from dying and making sure they're clean and making sure they're fed.
Men should be able to do that just as easily.
That is one of the easiest things in the world to do. Now, what they can't do is they can't show love and affection and build connection and nurture. But I'm just talking about keeping them from dying. And it's almost like, well, in this society, this feministic society, men are just so stupid and they can't even take care of themselves. I cannot stand it whenever I see Christian women share memes or make comments about their 2 children when one of them is a child and one of them is her husband.
Right.
All right, that's a little
soapboxy.
Yep. Verse 12, wherefore let him that thinketh he standeth take heed lest he fall. The idea with that is the children of Israel in that context were thinking they were all alone. Nobody's going through any trials like this but them. They're all alone. Nobody can help them. They've got to do it all on their own. That's when you fall. That's burnout.
Yep, absolutely.
And God just kept trying to tell them, I'm here. There is no temptation overtaking you, but such as is common to man. I'm faithful. I've prepared a way for you.
Right.
That's what we're trying to do with people with these podcasts, with what we're going to be doing. We're going to be trying to prepare a way for people, not prepare a way, but to give people, the way's been prepared, to give people tools so they don't feel alone.
Right.
So they don't feel like if they're a wife, they think that, if they're a wife with 4 children, they think that they've actually got 5 because the husband is a child. We want to tell the man to step up and take responsibility, and we want to tell the woman, you need to not think so highly of yourself that your husband can't do exactly what you do.
Well, and a lot of times it just goes back to what you said, like with the self-importance, like I've got to do it all. And we have a sense in which we feel like we should, so.
Exactly. One lady said, I've lived a long time without a phone in my hand. I don't even have a sound on my phone, or the sound on my phone. I have my cell phone to call people, not so people can call me. Only family and very few others even have my number.
Wow.
More power to you. More power to you. What's our next?
Let's see. We did your to-do list is overwhelming. Did we do your life doesn't motivate you?
Yes, let's do that one.
Okay, so your life doesn't motivate you. I think that some of these kind of just intertwine so easily.
Absolutely.
If you are feeling despair when you wake up in the morning because you're thinking that there's no use, that everything that I do today is just going to go badly or whatever, and that you're not really going to make any progress, and you're constantly making excuses. Isn't there that kind of emphasis on that with your life doesn't motivate you? The idea that like somebody can say, "Oh, well, you do so much," and then you think, "No, I don't," or you think negatively about it. But I don't know. Like, what do you think? What do you think about that? Your life doesn't motivate you.
I think that we have talked about before internal and external motivators.
We have.
And an external motivator, I've been studying the book of Proverbs, and Proverbs 27 is an amazing text. Let me flip over here to Proverbs, and I want to read this, and this is exactly what you're talking about. This is an admonition from Solomon to find motivation within ourselves, or the proper
internal,
proper motivation. And I'm just going to read these verses and kind of give a commentary on them and tie that in.
Okay.
Boast not thyself of tomorrow, for thou knowest not what a day may bring forth. Let another man praise thee, and not thine own mouth, a stranger, and not thine own lips. A stone is heavy and the sand weighty, but a fool's wrath is heavier than them both. Wrath is cruel and anger is outrageous, but who is able to stand before envy? Open rebuke is better than secret love. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. The full soul loatheth an honeycomb, but to the hungry soul every bitter thing is sweet. As a bird that wandereth from her nest, so is a man that wandereth from his place. Now, what does that have to do with motivation and your life motivating you? You need to figure out why you're doing what you're doing, okay? You do not do it for the recognition and notoriety of other people. Your motivation's got to come from within yourself. So number one, don't brag about what you're going to do tomorrow. Don't brag about what you're doing now. All right? Number three, don't try to appease the anger of a fool. Number four, don't try to stand up to the scrutiny of an envious person. Number five, surround yourself with people that are going to support you and are going to help you. And are going to be truth tellers, not flatterers. Number six, don't surround yourself with, again, flatterers, but people that are going to tell you what you need to know. Verses 5 and 6 go hand in hand. Now, find your validation in something other than external sources, because if you are hungry for validation, you're going to boast about what you're going to do tomorrow. You're going to boast about what you're doing now. You're going to try to appease the anger of fools, and you'll get burnt out doing that. And you'll get burnt out trying to stand up to the scrutiny of the envious. And you're going to surround yourself with flatterers. You're going to surround yourself with people who will not support you and will not stand by you because they won't love you openly. They're going to kiss you, but they won't love you openly.
Right.
And then you're going to be so hungry that the bitter things, what we've just talked about, are going to taste sweet to you, like honey.
Yeah.
And so you're going to gobble them up.
Yeah,
all right?
That's bad.
That's terrible. And then you're going to be like a little bird that wanders out of its nest, that falls to the forest floor and is eaten because he doesn't have the pinion wings to fly.
Mm-hmm. So you know what I hear is a lot of boundary setting there.
Yes.
You just gave me limitations.
Exactly.
Or Proverbs gave me limitations. Sure. You read them out to me.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But yeah, when we set those limitations and we understand the motivation behind it, it doesn't necessarily have to be desired or be validated as our motivation. That's one of them,
Sure.
But what are some other motivations? And it's so easy to get caught up in thinking our motivation is one thing whenever it's really another,
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're really good at giving examples. Can you give an example of that? I'm trying to think, like, I just want to help my kids succeed. That's like the motivation excuse. But really, like what your motivation is I'm scared I'm going to be alone if I let them do it without me.
Sure.
Is that like a good example?
It is. From another perspective, a lot of times we think that our motives are purely altruistic whenever they're actually very selfish.
No, in fact, like I have kind of a theory that most of the things that we do are not altruistic.
Absolutely.
I do believe in altruism. I just don't think it's necessarily as common as we like to think until we are really saturated in spiritual.
What's his name? Friedrich Nietzsche?
There is somebody named that.
The philosopher?
Yeah.
He said that the only true Christian to ever live died on a cross.
Wow.
That's sobering. He's also the one that said God's dead and we killed him.
Right, that's true.
But he's saying God's dead and we killed him because we've learned, we think we're standing alone.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. With the Industrial Revolution.
And so some things actually need external motivation. So we're not saying that like internal motivation is the only type of motivation to seek. There's sometimes, obviously, like I'm externally motivated to do my job because I'm going to get paid bi-weekly for it.
Sure.
That's like the
the only reason is, yeah.
But the internal motivation that kind of keeps me going forward and to do it as well as I possibly can is more from my feeling of responsibility to help families be stronger so that they can be Christian,
Yes. Yeah, we shouldn't. Here's the thing. Everything's about balance. Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 5 writes about our mind, our body, and our spirit. A lot of people have a hard time with that. Mm-hmm. That is our soul, our body, and our spirit. And people are like, well, I thought our spirit was our soul. Absolutely not. If you separate a soul, or if you separate a spirit from a body, the body is dead.
Yes.
All right? What happens to the soul? The soul goes to the Hadean realm. That's the soul is the part of your body it's the part of your existential nature that exists in the state at which it separates from the body forever. In other words, our bodies are going to change on the day of judgment. On the resurrection day, our souls are going to exist in this state forever. It's just our souls are going to be rejoined with our body. Our spirit's going to be rejoined with our body. Then you'll be a complete unit again. Mm-hmm. You'll have mind, body, and spirit. Spirit communicates, body encapsulates, and soul or your mind, that's your will, that's your essence. That's who you are.
Your person.
Yes, that's your personage. Which is an interesting conversation about abortion. When does a person become a person?
Yeah.
Well, obviously, logically, at the moment of conception, although they don't possess a will at that point, but they're still, you're snuffing out that will because we need to look at the system like God looks at the system. And when God said, let there be light, he saw everything at once.
Yeah.
So in his mind, whenever Adam died, the world died.
Yeah.
That's why Jesus is the great resurrecting power.
Right.
Ooh, good stuff. Anyway, why was I talking about that? Oh, yeah. Mind, body, and soul. We've got to be balanced. All right. Everything is about balance. Just because we don't want to focus so much on external motivation doesn't mean that we don't need it.
Right.
Titus 2 talks about soberly, righteously, and godly, that the grace of God teaches us how to live soberly, righteously, and godly. Soberly is your inward man, godly or righteously is your outward man, and godly is your transcendent man. Mm-hmm. It's your upward. Okay. Yeah. And I've got to figure out whatever I'm doing in the moment is directly relates to one of those three parts of who I am. I mean, that's how we're made in the image of God.
Right.
God's a triune being. We're triune beings. We have the will, the spirit, and the word of the body. And if I'm trying to figure out my motivation for something, I've got to figure out, am I doing this for external reasons? Am I doing this for internal reasons? Am I doing this to promote my essence? Am I doing this to make me a better person? Am I doing this to make the people around me better? am I doing this to affect my existence in this natural world in order to help others?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so much. The problem is whenever we are not true to ourselves,
we're not honest in answering those questions.
Yes, we come out of balance. Our will doesn't line up with our word, and our spirit doesn't communicate what's in our will,
right,
our minds.
Yeah.
And then that's when we need therapy.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Probably. Yeah. Okay. What next?
All right. Your life doesn't motivate you. You got to figure out your motivation. You're not having a break.
I think that's saying like maybe that's the same thing as not feeling like you're getting a break. Like you're just constantly going. But I mean, to me, it kind of gets wrapped up in, like I keep saying, it gets wrapped up in some of these other things.
Yeah,
like
I don't think these are necessarily progressive.
No, not at all. They're definitely interwoven.
Yeah.
But you're not having a break. Like that may be the reason that you snooze so many times in the morning, because you're like, I know whenever I get up, the day is going to come and it's never going to end. Like I'm not going to get a break whenever I get up.
That's exactly it. There'll be no reprieve.
There's not going to be, any moment where I feel.
People going to be burnt out in hell.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. That's like the ultimate burnout right there.
And
I mean, I think that it goes to introducing a little bit of that mindfulness in the moment that you can.
Yeah.
And taking that as a blessing, because the things that we can get and the things that we're able to look at from a positive mindset is going to help us through the day. So I'm sure that there's going to be times where you can find a moment away just to kind of like take a deep breath and get back centered. And
exactly. I mean, I've gotten to where I do self-care throughout the day. And I mean, I was doing self-care in the form of exercise, but I just, since I come back from Canada, while I'm recouping from that trip that was so hard on me, my self-care hasn't been exercise. My self-care has been relaxation.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes it needs to be. And, like a lot of times people cannot relax, and I would say that's definitely a sign of burnout. When you feel like you can't sit still for a minute and just be. Yep. That is a sign of burnout that's not on this list.
Exactly.
It's when you think you're busier than you really are.
Someone in the We Talk Truth group asked if we would repeat that, and I don't know what they're talking about. So maybe if you could give me an idea, I would try my best.
The sign of burnout that we're talking about is taking a break.
Yes.
Feeling like you can't take a break.
Yeah, but this has been.
So I don't know.
So you're not having a break. You're getting overly irritated by other people.
Man, I think out of all of them, this one is the hardest personally for me to recognize that I've done. And you will probably agree with me whenever I say it's probably because I have neglected to do what?
Self-care or eat. Yeah, you get hangry.
Yeah, he hit the nose right on the head. If I don't...
I hit the nose on the head?
You hit the head. What are you...
The nail on the head. Hit it on the nose, the nail on the head.
Yeah, I can't even get my cliches right.
Are you hangry now?
I'm getting hungry. I'm not irritated, though.
Gotcha.
Not yet. I'm going to go make sandwiches and we're going to go to have a picnic.
Well, I ate a breakfast this morning, or a brunch.
Yeah. I had a boiled egg.
But, I still fasted 16 hours.
That's pretty good.
It's not bad.
Yeah. So, what was it?
You're getting overly irritated by other people.
By other people. Okay, so if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh, this is something nice to listen to because I see the label here, 8 signs of burnout. I don't know if that's what you labeled it.
I did.
And you're like, I wonder what they have to say about that. If you're getting irritated at the suggestions, then there's probably burnout.
Probably burned out.
Because we are giving suggestions that may, for a person who is experiencing burnout in this present moment, the suggestions we're giving seem so magnified and huge and impossible to actually implement. Yep. So that is going to make you irritated.
Yes.
Highly irritated.
Yes.
You might get irritated because Tony says he practices self-care during the day. And you're like, oh, well.
So he's just lazy.
He can just practice self-care anytime he wants to. I don't get that opportunity.
Yeah.
if you thought that, then more than likely you're
experiencing
burnout because he works very hard, and we kind of get into that irrational zone.
In fact, I work 7 days a week,
which lends to higher susceptibility to burnout, which to me makes me happy and I guess like very grateful that you are recognizing that you need some of those self-care moments, because when you are burnout, you do tend to be highly irritated by other people, and it's very, very, very recognizable. I mean, it is definitely a ripple effect through our family, but when you take care of yourself and you are doing those things that keep you centered, our family just kind of chills and we're able to go on with things. It's the same thing for me. It's not just you who does that, but like when I'm like out of touch, the whole family is kind of feeling it, so maybe you can't self-care during the middle of the day like Tony's able to do, but you can find time to self-care. And more than likely even during the middle of the day you can, because self-care isn't laying around in a spa day all day. That's not what self-care always is. If you can do that, that's awesome.
That's taking whatever time you can just for a little bit and doing something that's going to really, make you enjoyable.
Here lately, my self-care has been identified, like stating my needs in the moment that I need them. So here I am working. I'm not talking necessarily about at home. I feel pretty comfortable at home most of the time. But like in my job, I can get pretty overwhelmed with a lot of the things that go on from a day to day. And because I have someone there that can take that slack a little bit, I might say, hey, I need to go and do this, and identifying those boundaries and kind of sticking to it so that I don't get overwhelmed and irritated later. So
I want to write some bulletin articles. I have some bulletin articles in mind, and I know what it's going to take for me to do it. Because one, I know if I'm here in this office, in this studio, I know what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be studying. I'm going to be reading. I'm going to be going live on stuff on Facebook and stuff like that. So I'm going to, in the next month, I'm going to carve out at least once a week for me to go to Starbucks. And because it's awesome, man. They keep it like at 58 degrees in there. It's wonderful. And that's obviously hyperbole. But I can go in there, I can take my little MacBook, and I can go in and I can sit down and I can get a cup of Verona. Or I've actually just brought my own coffee in before and just gone in there and sat down.
Yeah.
They don't care.
That's self-care.
Yes, that's self-care. And I'm going to write. I'm still working.
Yeah.
But it's I find it very rewarding.
And you notice ahead of time, like the environment needs to be different for you for this. So I'm going to do it this way.
Yes.
And that's just basically identifying your needs and being able to rearrange and so that you can prevent that burnout. Because if you sit in here, you're going to get overwhelmed and burn out, and you're not ever going to finish these articles.
Right.
And that's the thought process you're going to have too.
Yes, it's like weird.
Like
it's like
what I just said. Is
how come you're, Tony, if you'd all the time that you spent in your office stressing over not being able to finish those articles, if you'd just been writing articles, you'd have been done.
Right.
Yeah, but it doesn't work like that.
Right. Absolutely.
It doesn't work like that.
Absolutely.
So let's see. We've got a fella saying, what's the topic? If you'll look up there at the title, it says 8 signs that you're burned out. And that's what we're talking about today. So glad that folks are tuning in. And let's see, what were we on? You're getting overly irritated with other people. You're living on autopilot.
We talked about
that on the people from the third world country. They're not getting their needs met. They're living on autopilot. They're getting up and when I hear living on autopilot, I feel like I'm spinning my wheels. Which
would happen in the office if you had to write those articles in the office.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to pick on Sandra, and I'm not even saying she's burnt out. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm using her example. You could be burnt out and not hit snooze.
Yes.
Because of the autopilot thing.
Well,
which I don't think that she is.
Yeah.
I don't want y'all to understand I'm not saying that she's burnt out. I don't know. But she's the one that can identify if she's burnt out or not.
Sure.
But the thing is that we can't. Did I do something?
Nope.
Oh, okay. We can be on that autopilot. So it's not about hitting the snooze in that situation.
Right.
It's, it's about, all right, it's another day and I'm going to go through this day. And by the time the day is done, you sit down and you think, I did all this stuff. Like I don't even, you're probably not even thinking because autopilot is not thinking.
That's
it's literally getting up, going through your day, going to bed.
Yes.
Not taking a moment to be present.
I remember, when I was doing secular work, it would scare me that I would get home and I would not remember the drive.
Yeah, I've done that before.
Like, that's not good.
No.
That's not good. That's autopilot.
What about, okay, so one time I was actually driving to work or something, and I drove right past work, and I just kept going. And then I was like, whoa, wait. I'm not even anywhere close to where I'm supposed to be.
Well, so we can recognize that with driving. I don't know that that's totally, or that's exclusively a symptom of being on autopilot.
No, I got it.
Obviously it's autopilot because, you're just checked out while you're driving. But I think that's just while you're driving. But that certainly could be indicative of being on autopilot because of burnout. Here's the example. Here's the illustration. Whenever I was training horses for a living, people would call me and they would say, Tony, my horse, I think something's wrong with it. Is it sick? What's it doing? Well, it's coughed. It's coughing. Like, how many times have you heard it coughing? Well, you can hear it cough every once in a while in the pasture. I'm like, okay, so it's in the middle of July. We've had a 12-week drought. It's dusty. It's hot. You're feeding your horse hay off the ground. It could be that your horse is in the final throes of colic and is going to die because its guts are twisted and it's coughing because of that. Or it could be it's got dust in its throat and it just needs a drink of water. Mm-hmm. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. That just because you have a symptom doesn't mean you have the disease.
Right.
So just because we zone out. Yeah. Let me see here. 2 more comments. I have gotten irritated at others, but my friend has helped me understand my to-do list is probably not realistic. I don't set enough boundaries and I need to stay more self-aware. This is awesome. It's helpful. This is weird because we started the conversation out on another page, but I try to protect the identities just a little bit in the We Talk Truth group. So I'm not going to say the name of that person.
Okay.
We got to figure out a better way to do this. I think because I'm streaming on the added page, on the Near Churches page, and I've got a watch party in the We Talk Truth group.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, I think autopilot is when you have lost the motivation. You barely do what's mandatory to mark your checklist off. Right.
You just go through
the minimum requirements of your job.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Christian autopilot would be a good sermon.
Yeah.
The minimum requirements of your job. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't even do the minimum requirements.
Right.
That would be such a good discussion. What would be the minimum requirements of Christianity? Come to services when the doors are open. Mm-hmm. Give of your means. Support the brethren, edify one another. But most people don't get past attendance.
Yeah.
Anyway, good stuff.
See, I wonder if I can't really, I'm trying to identify a little bit with this autopilot and I can't. That's the one I think I identify less with.
Maybe because you've experienced it the least.
Yeah. And it's because I think I do a pretty good job of being present,
Well, you got to understand the way our lives has been, not through any virtue on our part or vice either, but our lives, we haven't
by the
been,
seat of our pants.
Yes, we haven't been doing anything long enough to get on autopilot.
Right.
We've been married.
Yeah.
For 20 years.
Let's see if we can.
And that's long enough to get on autopilot, but we haven't been on autopilot.
No, but I wonder if it's because we kind of we do change up a lot,
mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of, because even we have been married 20 years and I'm trying to think, I guess there's been times where we've been on autopilot in marriage.
I can't think of, it's always been an adventure.
Yeah. That's because of you.
Well,
I just go along for the ride. When you ask me what's our song, I just start singing.
Yeah. It is just mediocrity. Being in the unknown middle is absolutely unacceptable to me.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. We're constantly growing.
A few years ago at Polishing the Pulpit, they had a speaker talking about online evangelism. And the guy really drove it home and he said, we shouldn't argue on Facebook. And I'm like, that's why no one will remember your name.
Funny. Christians can get on autopilot with church attendance and stuff.
Absolutely.
Because we, especially like with, we sing 5 songs, we hear the lesson, we do the Lord's Supper, I'm probably getting those all out of order.
A chip, a sip, a tip, and then out the back door will slip.
But you know what we can do in those situations? Just autopilot from like a Sunday morning worship perspective. I make it not every Sunday, but most Sunday, my priority is to take some moment in prayer just to recognize like what it is that I'm doing.
Right.
So that maybe, just maybe, when I come into worship, I will remember that I prayed about it that morning, and I will not get stuck on that, that repetitive cycle. And
here's the thing, another thing. Once you realize that you're on autopilot, and especially if you realize that you're on
out of it.
Well, yeah, but once you realize that you're on autopilot, especially with your religion, with your Christianity, don't beat yourself up about it.
Right.
Just understand it's normal, it's human, and do something to break the monotony. Mm-hmm. Do something to reinvest yourself.
Yeah.
And this sounds crazy. I don't think we use coming forward enough.
Yeah, maybe so.
I think there's so much taboo about coming forward.
Yeah.
Like, no, I just need prayers.
Yeah.
I just need prayers. There's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
And when I say nothing wrong, I understand that the reason you're coming forward is because you think because there is something quote unquote wrong, but there's nothing abnormally wrong. There's just, I'm a human being.
Yeah.
I've been meaning to develop that sermon and preach it here at Bay. Are you a human being or are you a hypocrite?
Yeah.
A lot of times we think we're hypocrites. We're not hypocrites.
Right.
We're just human.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Yep.
Why do you beat yourself up about it? Paul said, I count not myself but to have apprehended, but this one thing. I cast off those things that are behind. I press toward the high mark of the calling of God in Christ Jesus. That's it. He forgets those things which are behind. Figure out if you're on autopilot, you've heard this, it's almost become rote now. If you're on autopilot, well, don't do that no more.
Yeah.
Now that's a very simple solution to a very abstract and complex problem sometimes. But if you need help with the abstract and complex problem, that's what we're here for. Mm-hmm. That's what we're here for. So make a conscientious decision to come off it, and then maybe do something absolutely crazy, like ask for help.
Yeah. That's hard to do.
I guarantee it. I had a wise friend about 30 years ago. This is another lady that said if people would treat their family like they treat their dog and treat their dog like they treat their family, the world would be a better place. We'd have a lot of mistreated dogs, though.
Right. We would.
Everybody would kick the poop out of their dog.
Yeah, that's true.
Jordan Peterson talks about this in his 12 Rules for Life. Treat yourself like you're someone you're responsible for.
Right.
And here's the thing, the statistics on people going to the doctor when they're sick is like 1 in 10 only go to the doctor. And out of those 1 in 10, the statistics of those who actually go to the pharmacy and get medication are even lower. And out of those people, the statistics out of people that go to the pharmacy and get the medicine and take it the way it's supposed to be taken is even lower than that. So when it comes right down to it, the statistics on how many people that when they're sick go to the doctor and does what the doctor tells them to do is like 1 in 10 million.
Yeah, I can see that.
But, and now these are hyperbolic numbers,
right,
to prove a point.
Mm-hmm.
Please don't fact check me. These numbers will not hold up to scrutiny, but the principle will. Mm-hmm. The people that when their dog is sick, take it to the vet and does exactly what the the vet says to do is like 1 in 10.
Right.
I mean, it's amazing, phenomenal how many people. It's a difference between 1 in 10 and 1 in 10 million.
Yeah.
And so we're supposed to take care. We're supposed to treat people like they're responsible. Like we're supposed to treat us like we're somebody we're responsible for taking care of.
Yeah.
Which goes back to love thy neighbor as thyself. A prioritization of love for self is built into that law.
Yeah.
I don't like this JOY, Jesus, others, and you. It should be JYO, Jesus, you, and others.
Right.
But anyway. All right. Living on autopilot. What next? When a marriage reaches autopilot, you are defrauding each other. Yep.
That's true.
That is absolutely true. Your thoughts are negative. Oh, resentfulness.
Yeah.
Have you ever done a word study on the word resentful?
Yeah. Well, only because of you.
Gotcha.
But you can go ahead. It's resending negative information.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so usually there's a slight.
Mm-hmm.
Usually there's, because you're not taking care of your basic needs, you're snoozing your alarm too much, so you lose your job, and your to-do list is overwhelming, so you feel worthless because you're not getting anything done. And then because you're not getting anything done, your life has no motivation, and you're not having a break because you're just living. You're getting irritated by people, so you lose all your love and connection, and then you're living on autopilot because you don't want to starve to death and die. Everything is negative.
Yeah.
And that's all you can do. You keep rescinding those negative thoughts. Maybe these are on a progression.
Yeah. Well,
you keep rescinding those negative thoughts, and then you end up being the person that if your brother who loves you tries to call you and ask you how you're doing, that's something wrong with him. He's just trying to be nosy and get into your business.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We can usually recognize like when all of our thoughts are negatives. Even going through this podcast, I can imagine like sitting there watching this podcast as someone who is burnout.
Yeah.
And the person who is burnout watching this podcast would have found something negative for each one of these.
For each one.
Yeah. Just like the example that Sandra gave, well, I can't get any time to myself because I constantly get interrupted, Okay, so let's change that to the positive. I don't know the exact circumstances of that. I think that was just an example that she gave. But still look at that from the positive side and recognize like, oh, I just got 20 minutes before I got bothered.
You're about to hear the Keurig.
Okay. I think I got a little bit like rambly.
No, you're good.
But what I was trying to get at is that like even listening to this podcast as someone who is burnout is going to find something negative about each one of these 8 signs of burnout.
Absolutely. You know what helps with burnout?
What?
Good coffee.
Coffee. You're right. Coffee.
Mm-hmm.
It sure does.
You should have brought some coffee over here.
Yeah, I didn't though. Because you had some here and I never did get it.
No.
I never did actually get any. But it's okay.
Gotcha. Well, so we've gone through the 8 signs that you're burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
And, this has been, do you realize that we have been recording for an hour and 37 minutes? I
knew it had been a long time, and that's the reason I like this better than doing it on Sunday night. And we're getting interaction from other people, Yeah. We can probably come up with more subject matter with the questions that people have.
Do you think that this needs to be a podcast by itself? Or do you think that we need to put this, and for those of you that are listening, give us some feedback. Do you think this needs to be a podcast by itself? And so it's going to have to be something besides Tony and LaBeth as of yet unnamed podcast. Because if we're going to promote it outside of our circle, they need to know what we're about. So this is Tony and LaBeth discuss mental health from a Bible standpoint. So I don't know what to call it. Christian counselors, although I'm not technically a counselor. But anyway, so maybe y'all could help us come up with a name. But do you think it needs to be a standalone podcast with its own podcast channel? Or do you think it needs to be on Cogitations extra and upload? Or does it need to be a We Talk Truth extra and upload it on the We Talk Truth podcast?
Are you asking me or are you asking the people?
I'm asking you. I'm asking the people. I'm asking everybody up in here.
Well, if we're doing it weekly and we're going to have a consistent Saturday morning routine with it, which I like the idea of, I feel a little bit more like coming over here on a Saturday morning than I do on an evening after I've worked all day. I think we could come up with our own, like it could just be a separate podcast because you're going to get really interested in following the statistics and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and so
you're right.
I think that would be.
Well, I've already got 2 pieces of feedback. One of which says mental health for the Christian, and the other says a separate podcast.
I was thinking of something like mental health for the Christian. That was one of the ones that I was thinking of just now, and or Christian mental health. But I like mental health for the Christian.
Gotcha. Mental health for the Christian. MHFC, mental health for the Christian. I like that. We'll chew on that a while.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get in here, and we don't have a lot of people. We don't have any comments that we haven't discussed in the added page. Let's go to nearchurches.com Facebook page and see if some folks. I think most of the people that have been watching have filtered into the We Talk Truth group.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of cool. And that's what we could do is we could just do it on the Near Churches page and do a watch party on the We Talk Truth group. And just kind of say, if you want to join in live, you've got to be a part of the We Talk Truth group if you want to have if you want to interact with us.
Yeah. Excuse me. You can probably, I don't know. I guess you could probably share this on in my group, like the mental health, mindful living.
Mm-hmm.
We could even name it mindful living. Mindful living for the Christian.
Biblical mental health.
That's a good one.
As a young mom, after dropping 3 children at 3 different schools, I would also find when I get to work, I don't remember some part of that drive.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I get that.
I am with you. All right. So, yeah, these are comments that were in the nearchurches.com live stream. So we may need to find a more streamlined way of interaction from the audience.
Okay.
This would be great to have to share. So you can actually share this from the nearchurches.com Facebook page. And so like Sandra said 13 minutes ago, pass out a questionnaire with that question. I think what she's talking about is whenever I said, what are the minimum requirements of... Oh,
yeah, that would be a really good idea. She's right. That'd be good.
That would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
That would actually be a good Facebook post.
What I just thought of?
What's that?
I'm going back to what the girl said about the 3 children and dropping them at separate schools.
Uh-huh.
I think that probably you can identify those parents that are burnt out by the kids that end up getting left in the back seat in their car. People always say like,
oh man.
People always say like, I can't believe you could leave your child in the car.
That's burnout. That's autopilot.
Yeah, that's autopilot right there.
And that's also a good example of the world being way too stinking judgmental.
Yeah, it makes me feel really bad for them when I see all those really negative comments. You know that they are suffering immensely for what they've done.
So let's take the 23 man, another hour of podcasting. So let's take the where was I at? Oh yeah. Remember I talk about faith. What is faith? Oh, it's the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Yeah, so what?
Mm-hmm.
So what? Tell me what that looks like to the 22-year-old girl who has a 2-year-old baby, a baby on the way. Her husband just got laid off at the factory, and she's going into Walmart with a 20 spot, and she needs to get some groceries and diapers.
Man, she ain't going to be able to get it all because...
Exactly. You tell me what faith looks like then.
Mm-hmm.
Action you take based on what you believe.
Yeah.
All right? That's what faith is. Now, we can have a conversation about that girl. That girl's going to be running on autopilot.
She sure
now,
is.
let's give her what she needs for daily sustenance. Let's fix her life and let's affirm her in what she is. And now, would she ever leave her baby in the back seat?
No.
Absolutely not. But in that low functioning situation, which so many people are in,
absolutely,
through yes, it's their quote unquote fault.
Mm-hmm.
But life is tragic. If all that happens to you is you are born and you die comfortably in your bed at a ripe old age, your life is tragic. Because we were never designed to be that way. We were designed for something else whenever God breathed the breath of life into man. Sins entered the world and made our lives tragic. So I don't know what it could be, but I know what it is now, and it's tragic at the best of times. Now, I'm not trying to preach gloom and doom, but who are you to indict that woman for not having any love for her child.
Yeah, exactly. 'Cause
Anyway.
you know she did.
Woo, boy.
Sorry.
Yeah, my bad.
I kind of interrupted.
No, Chadwick Lucas says he started a watch party. Thank you very much, Chadwick. Yeah, you can start this as a watch party anytime you want. All right, so I think we've made some healthy minds in God.
That's a good one.
Healthy minds in God. It's good stuff.
It's really good. Thank y'all for all of the feedback. That's very helpful. This is so much better than doing what we were doing before.
Just recording, yeah.
Yeah, I like the interaction.
I do too.
A whole lot.
Well, that's where I cut my teeth.
Yeah.
And what we've been doing Sunday night at Bay is because of my time on Facebook.
Oh, okay.
I found it is so much better. You teach people so much more when there's interaction.
Mm-hmm. Well, what that is like it's that interact the what am I trying to say? I'm doing my hands this way.
A dialogue?
No, it's connecting.
A give and take?
Yeah, it's like the connection.
Gotcha. Well, when Acts 20 and verse 7, Paul preached till midnight, ready to depart on the morrow. Do you think that he was standing in a pulpit and everybody else was down below him and he was talking? No.
We learn much better whenever there's a dialogue rather than a monologue.
I'm fully convinced that's not the biblical model of preaching.
Yeah. Wow. But I do like the sermon style for Sunday morning, like what we have. Maybe that's just me being.
Well, no, there is.
I think that there's a reason for that.
When I say
we see that there's authority for that.
Yes, there is a dialogue. There is an oration.
Yeah.
I mean, Acts chapter 17, Acts chapter 2.
Yeah.
Those are Acts chapter 7.
Mm-hmm.
Getting up. But whenever you look whenever we have 2020 vision for church growth, Acts 20 verse 20, how I've kept back nothing that was profitable unto thee, but have showed thee and have taught thee publicly and from house to house. That right there is the ticket.
Mm-hmm.
That right there is publicly and from house to house. It's been a dialogue. All right. Listen, we got to get off here. Thank you so much. Appreciate you greatly. And share this. Look forward. Be looking for a podcast about mental health. I appreciate Healthy Minds in God. What else do we have? Healthy Minds in God. Somebody said make some coffee for your wife. I shall. I'm going to do it after I get off here. Mental health for the Christian. Healthy Minds in God. Mental health in God, something like that. So good stuff. God bless y'all. Incidentally, if you like what we do and you want to help us do it better and do more of it, go to www.patreon.com/nearchurches and you can help make sure that this content gets better and better. And we already have 10 patrons, and which is really helpful. But the more we have, the more content we can produce, and we could actually, especially for this, we could actually get people, like we could
do some stuff behind a firewall that wouldn't really be able to do in certain.
Well, it's not that we could put it out there for all the world to see, but we could have some people come in, some specialists come in with mental health, and we could actually, I hate to say pay them, but we could reimburse them. We could say, hey, would you want to come in and be on our podcast, and here's a stipend for your travel expenses.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So anyway, God bless y'all. We appreciate you, and we'll see you on the flip side.
See you later.